loaders and reloaders and 3 circles passengers and members. It's Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone Express. And what you see here is everything you need to load 38 Special. But we're going to do something different today because of Svein Arne Hagen and what he suggests doing, because we've been doing a lot of work with shorter cartridges being more efficient than longer cartridges for standard velocities and even standard velocity plus P plus P plus. More efficient with shorter cartridges. Well, what Svein Arne Hagen says is that he's got a special load using the 38 Special case where instead of having a shorter case, you seat the bullet deeper all the way down inside the case, like the old 7.62 millimeter Russian Nagant revolver where the bullets are seated underneath the case mouth, and that's because the revolver has a cylinder that moves forward and actually creates a gas seal against the back of the barrel. And the cartridge case goes into the back of the barrel so that it seals the flash gap. Well, that revolver wasn't that successful, and you don't see anything like that today, but those old 1895 Russian Nagant revolvers are still around out there. You got one, you're lucky, because it's a real unique piece. So what Svein Arne Hagen's idea is to go ahead and load similar, but take advantage of a deeper seating to create a more efficient powder space for small powder charges that will work more efficiently than a large powder space seating the bullet farther out. Now, seating that deep would normally be taboo, but this makes a lot of sense. You'll probably catch the drift as we go along. Well, here you see the dies we're going to use. They are the RCBS Cowboy dies in 38 Special 357 Magnum. And the brass we're going to use is Winchester 38 Special brass, left over from my PPC shooting days. I got quite a few of these. And this batch is wet tumbled, and they're already primed. I primed them before. Sometimes when I'm listening to a ball game, I'll go ahead and just prime cases. And so I'm running out of primers, but it turns out I've got a bunch of brass in all the calibers that the primers are already in there, so I still have primers already in cases. Already primed cases, like you see here. So I took some of those out of my 38 Special cache, and what we got here is the brass we're going to use for this project. Now we're going to be loading with Bullseye powder. That's a Liant, but this old can still says Hercules on there, but I just go ahead and refill this as necessary. The bullet we're going to use is the fine Lee 105 grain semi-wad cutter cast bullet, and they're all lubed with Tumble Lube. That's the Lee Liquid Alox, and it's the 45-45-10 system. And if you know about that system, great, but if you don't know about it, I've got videos on the 45-45-10. So these cases are all ready to go except for having the neck expanding mouth flaring, so I go ahead and set the dies so that it creates a perfect entry of the bullet without shaving the lead when it comes time to seating the bullets. And so we'll go ahead now and expand the necks and flare the case mouths of all the brass that we're going to be doing this project. And there's that bullet in there, 105 grain Lee semi-wad cutter cast bullet. So I'll just show you how I short stroke the RCBS Rebel press here, and also take advantage of the nice platform that they give you to be able to run these cases pretty quickly through here. So you see, in just that short time, we've got 5 cases all ready to go with the expansion mouth flaring. So of course a lot of you already know this, but the secret to good neck expansion mouth flaring is where the bottom driving band actually goes into the case mouth. And so the bullet wants to stay in the case neck all by itself. And this way you assure that when you seat the bullet there won't be any lead shaving. Now if your bullet has a bevel base, then of course that bottom band has to go in a little farther to have good neck expansion mouth flaring. Now I've got the press set up to take the Lee breech locks, and so here's the breech lock, and all you gotta do is put the next die in with its own breech lock and it just pops right in. The only thing is, if you're gonna change the bullet, you've gotta go ahead and readjust the die anyway. But this makes for more convenient die switching. So the question is, how do you figure out the powder charge when you're going to do this deep seating technique? Well, it turns out that Svein Arne Hagen likes to use Vitavori powders. So since I don't use Vitavori powders, and not now anyway, but perhaps in the future, but since I don't use Vitavori powders, his loading data doesn't help me. So how am I going to go ahead and use powders like Bullseye to load this load? So it turns out that if you seat the bullet so that the bullet nose is the equivalent overall length inside the 38 special case as the 38 short Colt. In other words, if you measure the base of the 38 special case to the bullet nose inside and it's equivalent to the 38 short Colt, then you can use 38 short Colt load data. And that means I can use a load of 2.6 grains of Bullseye. So let's go ahead and do that. Should give us somewhere around 800 feet per second in our single action Ruger Blackhawk with the 6.5 inch barrel. So here's my powder charge as dispensed from the Hornady automatic powder dispenser. 2.6 grains of Bullseye. And we'll go ahead and let it throw the next charge, and now let's go ahead and seat that bullet. So now we've got our powder charge case, and it's, of course, the flare is properly set. Now, how do you seat the bullet underneath the case mouth by 3 millimeters or 0.15 inches? Can't use your regular seating die because the best it'll do is to flush the bullet with the case mouth like loading a wad cutter. So what Svein Arne Hagen recommends is using a 9mm seater to do it. And that of course works. But here's another alternative that you might find handy. And that is, I took a neck expander Lyman M die that's 30 caliber, or you could use a 32 caliber, but the expanding stem is long enough that we can use it to seat 38 caliber bullets deeply into a 38 case. And that's what I have here. And it's set up just to work fine. So here's my bulleted case going into the Lyman M die, and it's seating the bullet deep. As you see. Well, there you see the bullet seated 3 millimeters deep in the case mouth, or 0.15 inch, your choice. But that worked out real well. It's clean in there. And now we'll go ahead and apply a standard roll crimp to the case mouth to facilitate the cartridge entering the cylinder or your Model 52 Smith & Wesson semi-automatic target pistol. Okay, there you see all the bullets seated to that nice 3.05 millimeters below the case mouth. So these are great for revolvers and not for lever action rifles. So there you see the finished rounds with just the right amount of crimp to make it easy to drop into chambers. And here it is from the case mouth view. Well, some might say that these are going to be a problem because you can't see a bullet, so you might get confused that it's not loaded ammo, but these feel in the hand just like a bunch of wad cutters. And notice how they drop in just nicely. This is hard to do with a camera in the way. You see how they stick right in when you give them a chance. Like so. Function fine, and they fall out without any problem, really. There you see. Now, some of you out there might have already been using loads like this, and if you have, then it'd be good for you to go ahead and comment and tell us what your experiences are with these. And I'd like to thank Svein Arne Hagen for the great idea of these loads. Certainly these are going to be nice because they don't use much powder at all. A very light bullet, good standard velocity, can be used for range or target shooting, small game hunting, recreational shooting out in the field. Very handy. You can tell this is loaded ammo because of the weight. So take care. We'll see you in the next video. We're going to go to the range and test these. Bye for now.